Welcome everyone. This is a presentation about the AAGM. Here is the screen of the AAGM, and here is a gateway and another gateway. One is the source and the other one is the target. So let me log in onto the AAGM and show you. You can see the first screen has 3 environments, and inside these environments we are going to enroll our first gateway, which is the source. As you can see, it's quite straightforward to register, record the different gateways, and it automatically tells you where RESTman is. You can choose the environment, name of the cluster, authentication method. You can choose the certificate method if you wanted to, but we are going to use username and password as these are just test gateways. Admin and then 7-layer. Another checkbox before clicking on submit add node is keep adding nodes, so that it allows us to register yet another node, which will be our target. As you can see, you do get a feedback that the source has been added. Now we change the different fields to target 1 and SSG target 1. As you can see, RESTman also, the endpoint of RESTman changes. We put it in production to simulate that it goes from development and production. We stop keeping adding nodes and we register the last one. As you can see from here, it was recording information about the node. Another thing we can do is we can click on Discover APIs, and what that will do is it will go through the gateway and look at any services that are present. As you can see, there is only one at the moment, which is the Gateway REST Management Service, which is normal because we haven't put anything in. Another place where you can look at all the resources that are on the gateways are here, and you can see again you only have a minimal amount of elements as it is an empty gateway. At this point, we go ahead and we create our own first REST service, a test one. We call it test one, then test/1. That would be the endpoint, of course, with a star at the end, and we just finish it. We put a return template response, simple plain text response. Hello world, of course, and press OK. Save and activate. Now we test the service. We can see that it returns hello world, just as it should be. Nothing special. Now on the target, as you can see, if I check it, there is no service test one. So let's go back to the AAGM. And as you can see, it still shows me one service. That is because we have not reloaded the entities. This is a step that needs to be done manually or scripted. Now, if we go back to the source, we look and we see that there is a new service test. So we select it. We get all sorts of information about the test, including a possibility to migrate it. We choose the target, which is target 1, and we can either execute it directly or prepare the migration. This means it's a two-step migration. Firstly, it allows you to prepare the migration, see what elements are going to be sent, which ones you've chosen, which is with the green arrow, what are the actions, and if you want to bulk change those actions. If there are any other elements that need to be created, it will tell you. You can also fill up some more pipeline requests, so things that need to be done before, prior, or after the migration is completed. And you can also change certain parameters relative to the service or to the entities that you are going to migrate across. This is very useful if you have hard-coded any information. Now we have 4 buttons. As you can see, you have the perform, the test, assign, and download. So download is, of course, to download a sort of offline version, and test that we are doing now is to test the migration without actually doing the migration. It will tell you, as you can see from the logs, if the migration will be successful, and in the logs it will tell you what has happened, how it has happened. You have both the logs of the actual AGM and the logs of RESTman. Now, if we are happy, we can perform. You can choose between creating the folder and also deactivate the migrated API. You can add a comment if you need to. And then we just press continue. As you would have expected, everything was successful. And on the target, if we refresh the view, you can see that the test service is there. And if we test it, we get a response this time. So this type of migration was successful. This is the simplest one where the target does not have an entity or an element. You can also look at the different migrations that have been performed in the past. And as you can see, you get the time, the timestamp, the source, the target, the migrated the resources, and also the creator. You have all sorts of information regarding if it was successful or not and other details. Now let's publish another service, but first of all, let's create a folder. Let's make this migration a bit more interesting by creating some dependencies and some folders within folders. So we create another cluster-wide property just called Cwp test, and then put hello world from Cwp. This is to simulate dynamic variables or dynamic elements where the target needs to actually have another variable, another value. Then we create a test policy within which we are going to use the set context variable assertion to recall that cluster-wide property. So we just call it payload, and inside we are going to reference the cluster-wide property. So gateway.cwp.test. Press OK. So now it will recall that. On top of that, what we are going to do to make it even more interesting is we are going to add the reference to another cluster-wide property which does not exist, .unknown. So we save and activate the test policy. Let's make it even more interesting. Let's change it into a encapsulated assertion. We give it some name, test encas, put it under internal assertion, and then just press OK. So this test encas will actually export a variable called payload, return a variable payload. So we create a service for it, test2, finish it. And within that test2, of course, as you have guessed, we are going to call that test encas so that it returns the variable payload. And then we return that to the screen. So to return template response to requester, put it in there, change the content type to something more plain, and display the variable payload within the return. Change from test to 2, and here it is, hello world from Cwp. And as you can see, the other part is empty because the cluster-wide property doesn't exist. So we go now under resources. Of course, we reload the resources of the source. Choose source, look under, and now you can see that there are the two folders with the test policy and the test service, the two cluster-wide properties, and encapsulated assertion as well. When you click on encapsulated assertion, as you can see, you also have a vision of the dependency tree. So you have dependency and parent. The same for cluster-wide property. Every single element will have a dependency tree where it will tell you what it depends on and if someone else depends on you. So, or on the element that you have chosen. And that is very useful. So here you can see test 2 depends on test encas. So source to target 1, we're going to decide to prepare. But before that, let's increase the stakes and create a new service called test2 on the target. This will enable us to show the possibility that AAGM shows to auto-map a service or an entity that has been already created on the target manually without it being imported via the GMU or the GPP, the Gateway Policy plugin, or even the AAGM. So the IDs between the two services are completely different, although the two services have the same name. And as you can see, this one returns hi world. This is on the target. As you can see, the services have the same name, different service IDs. At this point, we can go back to our migration. We prepare the migration. At the moment that we click, it will do the examination of both the target and the source. And as you can see from here, it has been mapped by name. It has detected that there is a service with that name, and it has mapped it by name. You can change that mapping, as you can see from that drop down. And also it shows you the action it will take. It also noticed that there is Cwp Unknown that is missing in source, and also folder 2 that is missing in target. And because it did see it, it did mention that it will create it for the folder. At this point, we can test it. And because we have checked that it needs to create folders on the target, it is fully successful. We are going to perform the migration, and note how, because the cluster-wide property is missing on source, it has been mapped as ignore. And here it is, hello world from CWP from the target. So the target has actually received all the data and was able to complete the migration fully. Here is the test 2. You can see there is folder 1. The encapsulated assertion is in the service. Now test policies comes up as a policy and not as an encapsulated assertion in the tree because of a bug in Policy Manager. You just have to log out and log in again, and as you can see now it's marked as an encapsulated assertion within the actual icon, within the actual tree. So looking back at the actual migration and the result, what we are going to do now is we are going to go into the class-wide properties and create the Cwp Unknown. We're going to give it some value. I was unknown. And we save it. At this point, if we look at the source, you can see that now we get some feedback. You can click on go back to migration or just go back to resources, reload the resources, As you can see, I'm doing it only on the source because we don't need to reload the target, because every time you perform a migration, it will automatically go and fetch the details from the target. So let's click on prepare. You always have to define the target, by the way. And what we are also going to look at are the template variables. As you can see, you can change all the variables you want, including this Cwp Unknown. We're going to change this to I am not unknown anymore. And as you can see, the data source says bundle, but it gets changed to user and its flag is red, stating, yes, during the migration, the values have changed and they were changed by a user, so dynamically. The test was completed successfully, of course, and it tells you, see, the cluster-wide property unknown is new, so it will be created, and everything else stays the same. Used existing, update existing. As you can see, there is nothing. And lo and behold, when we actually push the service across, it is successful. When we refresh and go back to looking at the cluster-wide properties, here it is, and the value is the value of that we changed it to. I am not unknown anymore, while the other one said I was unknown. Let's say that we don't like it. What we can do is revert the migration. If you click Revert Migration, it means that it is going to undo anything that has been done, including deleting any new elements that were created previously. And you get a message that says migration was rolled back. Now we return to the migration and we will change the value to something more adequate. So this is to simulate that use case when you would find yourself sending something from one environment to the other. When it reaches the other side, something went wrong. So you have the possibility of testing it, and if you didn't like it, or if the tests were unsuccessful, you can turn around and redo the migration, as you can see, correcting what the error was. So, and you can keep doing that over and over again, of course. So as you can see from the list of the migrations, we have our migrations timestamped. We also, within the configuration, are able to change the default behavior for every single element. That way you can state if things should be new or existing or new or update. And this concludes the presentation. Thank you for listening.